Good evening, everybody. I know it's a later start than what I would normally like, and this is the first stream since Friday. It was a day off. It was a holiday, so I always want to try and respect the holidays, otherwise I burn out. I had a little bit of a rough day at work. I'd had a really good sort of upward trajectory in terms of work for a while, so inevitably some of that's going to come back down, but it's nothing too critical. I still am enthusiastic to be where I am, but it was a little bit of I won't say a tougher day, just a bit of a maddening one. And Book of Hours is a wonderful way to sorry, I'm missing Book of Hours. Oh, crumbs. Okay, sorry, I don't have House of Light set up. Just give me a quick second here. But yeah, Book of Hours is an absolutely wonderful game. I mean, I think it's a game for all seasons, really, but it's one of these cases where if you had a tough day, if you need to take your mind off of something, it's just something really, really nice about sitting down, hearing that opening music, and just sort of losing yourself inside of it. I think that's really, really wonderful. I'm going to read the outline for the beta because I think we're going to be making some reasonably big decisions in a little bit. So, books are the memory which does not die, inscribed in 5 languages over the gate of Hush House. Go quietly, Book of Hours is a forgiving sort of game. If you're worried you might be stuck, there's usually another way. So, I believe this is a new version. Let me just take a second here. Welcome to Hush House tips. These are on the loading screens, but from the FAQ... I actually didn't notice this. So, patch 2024 7G1. Olaf, wonderful to see you. Gervenius, tweaked layout when there's lots of arrival verbs. Excised 4 instances of Frasier and 6 of the. House of Light added a minor variant outcome for unfinished lark. Serpent milk no longer a cooking ingredient. Interesting. If you pour or don't pour the thing we don't talk about in the place we don't discuss, the result now shows correctly that you poured it or didn't rather than the reverse. And fixed a nasty subtle bug where further stories weren't noticing changes in other further stories. Interesting. Alright, patch 24.8H1. My name is Hokabald of Posend. Do not mangle it in your peasant mouth. It's a little bit of a mixed day, but not a terrible one. Are you doing okay, Olaf? I'm always happy to see you. Alright, apples are sometimes found on the moor. Raw pheasant and beef can now be fed to your cat or other carnivorous pets. The bronze knife is now a tool. Interesting. Typewriters and the chronsocord can now be used as inks. The typewriters won't be exhausted. In particular, in House of Light, you can now type letters and manuscripts, although you may need more aspect sources. Okay, so I see what they're doing here. So with a typewriter, essentially you're getting you're getting a renewable way of sending out invitations. That's a nice one. I wasn't too upset about making the inks, but I think I see why they're trying to do that. So, House of Light, it's easier to make King's Luck pie and possible to make vegetable stew. A handful of unique visitor responses to particular dishes. Mrs. Kill can now be invited for dinner along with her husband, even if she's not a friend. Connie can still be recruited as a founder, even if she makes a certain career choice. Now that's interesting because I don't believe I saw Connie in the list, but we'll take a look at that. Further Stories text size now honors the text size setting. Further Stories text can now be click copied. Lighthouse Institute endings now available. That's a big change. A potential Institute founder can no longer have both agenda secrecy and agenda revelation. Thought I'd squash that ages ago, but no. House of Light at the salon end. Food and drink remains no longer manifest as pink triangles, and lots of other fixes. Okay, so this is good too because I'm sort of into the substance of the beta here, and so I feel like I'm like I'm gonna be able to properly participate in terms of finding stuff with this new update. So all is well. Although we are probably going to spend some time on the Tree of Wisdoms, just to be clear. Everything is remembered. Hush House endures. So I must have been sitting on this tryst because I couldn't find anything else to do. I'm just trying to think if there's any other memories. Okay, so there's definitely one memory, which would be Wrapped in the King, but I'm not going to generate that now. I have a feeling that's a really good way for me to lose my tryst. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter, because I'll lose the tryst in the morning anyway. Yeah. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Alright. A quiet salon, you held a quiet salon. Perhaps there weren't very many guests, or they didn't have much to say. This is a marker to remind you that you can hold another one next season. So I think we're just going to leave this... Yeah, it looks like I'm actually committing a couple of things overnight. Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to trust the wisdom of what I did earlier. Although I do question this. I think something went wrong. I can't imagine myself doing help with letters overnight like this. Oh, I see why. Because it's not night, it's morning, it's dawn. So how much you want to bet that tryst that I set aside was so that I could level up the skill? Yep, that's almost certainly what it was. Okay, well that's fine. I'll get my Elements of the Soul back. An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. And Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of the secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe, in Egypt, and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries of the cults of Isis and of Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in the carcass, its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. Okay, some authorities claim it's difficult to lose a pot of Peribiate ink, but they haven't lived at Hush House. Now, until I find the typewriter, I still want to be making replacement quantities anyway, but right now I just want to get the original inks that I was planning on. I think I'm gonna make another one. Pour out. Pour it out. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink, while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. So right now this is mostly just about, I mostly just kind of want to play out the different actions that I was taking, I feel like I'm down a couple of elements of the soul that I shouldn't be. But I am sort of jumping between a couple of different playthroughs right now, so I may just be misremembering the state of things. But yeah, what I want to do is I'll just sort of digest what I set in motion at the end of the last stream. And then I'll work out a game plan. I think I was fairly clear that I plan on committing some things to the Tree of Wisdoms. What I would like to do is just sort of work through all of the books that I'd like to work through all of the books that I sort of had a potential to level up with. I think the big logic that I had here was that I believe I will have, in the end, a language in every slot. In fact, I should have a spreadsheet to that effect. Sorry, just give me 1 second here. Sorry, I just got a bot. Okay. I'm a little worried that I wrote all of this out for... Oh no, yep, I've got something for... House of Light. So I think the idea here was that Vac would go into Nyctodromy. Sabazine would go into Birdsong. Ramsund would go into Preservation. Kilisimi would go into Bosk. Arab would go into Skolakosophy. Kernwek Hanivek would go into Ithistry. Fusine would go into Hushery. Erikapayan would go into Illumination. Horamakastri would go... Deep Mandayak would go into Horamakastri. And then the question would be, for Crack Track, does that go into Illumination or Preservation? So Illumination and Preservation have a question in terms of whether they will be a level 2 or level 3. But everything else should be at level 2 because I don't want to, if I can avoid it, I don't want any elements of the soul populating, or I don't want any skills sort of populating those first tabs in the list. I also forget, I think I have more than Fusine that I can learn, but I'm going to need to remember who has the various languages in my little diary. I think I have a record of that somewhere. So there's a couple things that I wanted to point out. Like, if I have a level 1 skill, say, in Skolakosophy, I don't actually need to have one in Nyctodromy. But on the other hand, I don't want to take those lessons and use them to level up languages when I have every other option available to me in the at the start of the game, right? So I'm at a point here now where the only things that I've committed to the Tree of Wisdoms are basically languages, and I have upgraded my skills accordingly. I may want to show some preference to some skills over others based on their outcomes. That is sort of a secondary concern to me right now. But what I'm trying to do right now is be a little bit more effective in terms of this whole idea of preserving some options. It's clear that I'm going to need more elements of the soul, But before I try and get more elements of the soul, what I want to try and do is lay that foundation that will allow me to sort of use, make the most of the existing slots that I have. Okay, better now. So I'm going to... well, let's see what these other ones bring. So, what does not bark? Alexander Props writes warily of Calyptra, a law, principle, or society which prevents the dissemination of dangerous knowledge. Calyptra, like the planet that occludes the star or the Doylean dog that fails to bark, can be identified only by its absence. Even the name, I think, must be a mask. Calyptra is said to make exceptions specifically for the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. Does it make those exceptions so the Hours can make use of them? So we got a Storm for our trouble and another Edicts Inviolable. So really it's just a question of getting the element of the soul there. Let's also add that to the Storm shelf. I thought I had Apollo and Marsyas. Yes. And here we have Kion at Abydos, a play dealing with the 9-year sojourn of a snow goddess in the Thracian city of Abydos by Apollo Fireweaver, in English, published in 1892, purportedly from an older Greek text. The entity called Kion arrives in a blizzard and demands the city gates are barred. As Abydos falls under her spell, the dead return, but do not speak. For 8 years, the city is a place of slow death, frosty ecstasy, and silent beauty, but in the 9th year, a conspiracy of shouts is mounted against the quiet that Kion demands. The conspirators open the city gates, and a scarred man comes to drag Kion out by the hair. Summer returns, but the conspirators die of remorse. Add that to regrets. Now, Kion at Abydos is one of these sort of anchoring texts that I have. Why did I put that there? In the sense that it's one that I always remember has regrets. So it used to be when I was building shelves without labels, that would be a way I would remember. I was wondering for a minute why I didn't label this, and it's like, right, because I don't know the words. Okay. So I have got 2 Whist, 2 Tryst, and a Health. Nope. I have more. And a Fet. Okay, so I'm going to do something a little different here. So we're going to take the Tryst. We'll pay a 2pence. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to use the Whist right away to level up Snow Stories. And again, the logic here is that I know that I'm going to be able to use level 2 out of everything. I might even be able to go higher, but I know that level 2 is a floor that I can establish for all of my skills now. Against the sisterhood of the Knot and the foulness of their depraved customs, Hieronymus Pseudo-Hypnerotomachus wrote this furious screed about the sinister influence of the sisterhood of the Knot on his own Church of the Unconquered Sun. Hieronymus claims that the powers served by the Sisterhood of the Knot made an arrangement. The Thunderskin loved the Yew, and the Grail destroyed him, as restitution for the destruction of the Axe's loved ones. Hieronymus's writing becomes incoherent with rage at this point. Hieronymus recovers his composure, eventually, to describe how the Thunderskin entered the Mansus through the Peacock Door. This, Hieronymus insists, is abomination upon abomination, but then that most abominable of doors has always been an abomination. Alright, I can't remember where I put my intuitions. This is Confounding Parables. Gossip. There we go. Okay. I think at some point I'm going to have to think about... Actually, you know what a funny thing is? I'm bringing back the health, I think I was originally going to bring it back for the ink, but I think in this case maybe what I'll do is I'll just get another pitcher of water. The skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. I deserved a little quiet time. Yeah, so in this case I think I'm going to pull up the water. Or draw the water. I don't feel a strong need to lower the bucket creaking into the dark. I don't feel a strong need to use the health. So we can use the Tryst with the Edicts Inviolable. And then Sky Stories, essentially I need to bring my Fet back, but I don't really feel like I'm at a point where I have to use... Actually, let me just double check here. So sadly I can't keep the... Oh yes, I can. So I'll just keep the Intuition overnight with Sky Stories, and then... or for Sky Stories, and then we can use the Fet to level that up the next day. So a little bit different from how I planned the day ongoing, but not a bad one. Okay, so we have the Wainscot Histories, which would be a lantern text. We do have a little bit more with the Watchman's Paradoxes. So we've got 4 with the Wainscot Histories, the Mirror Scope. Okay, we're short 1. Or, no, we're not. We just need a memory. Better know. What should I keep? There's always more to learn. Sorry, I know it's a little bit of a quiet start here. So yeah, Wainscot Histories is available to me. True History of Valentine de Wolf. I don't think we have a higher Sky yet. We might get that through Sky Stories, though. So 3 Sky, 4 with the Astrolabe. Yep, we can do that. So the skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. Against Vitruvius for the same reasons. I might want to consider what I do with some of these other texts. So I should be able to read a few of them. And I kind of just shifted the whist. So normally I use sort of the whist at the end of the day to do something, but in this case I just used the whist in the middle of the day and I'm recovering a little bit of money. A little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. Okay, so realistically, what am I looking at in terms of new skills? So another level for Auroral Contemplations, another level for Furs and Feathers, unless we already have Furs and Feathers in the... Maybe I don't. Oh no, yep, there it is. I should probably just take the time and sort these out. Against Vitruvius would be Lockworks and Clockworks. So again, all of these are suitable candidates for a second level. I don't need to get clever with any of this yet. Now, a very sensible question to ask next is, because I am raising the floor, and admittedly it's just one aspect at this point, so it's not exactly decisive. But there's a reasonable question to ask: have I enabled other texts in terms of these levels? So with Pentaments and Precursors and 3 Scale, right? We have the 3 Scale, then we have the 1 from the Health, we have 1 from the the hourglass. So with that, we would need a memory which is 3. So then we turn that around and we say, well, what if we didn't go for the serpent-style glass? What if we wound up making a Peribiot? And in that case, we would be able to push it over. So that gives me a reason to make another ink. So we'll take weaving and not working again. It's funny that this has become sort of a de facto favorite. Let's take the kitchen bowls. Nope. Not all knots are physical. I can brew an ink which ties the naming to the named. Sorry, I'm fiddling with my... I started wearing glasses. Should say started wearing glasses again, so... Still getting a little used to having them on my headphones. Alright, so yeah, we are going to make the ink just because I think that'll make life easier for me in terms of reading books. I should maybe see if I can find a typewriter. Although I seem to recall that's in the Cucurbit, so that's probably going to take me a while. Okay, so I'll put this kind of in its own separate shelf. Letters to my successor. Now this is an interesting one. So light-wise we have lantern-wise we have the Watchman's Paradoxes. So that's 3. Whist gives me 4. Mirror Scope gives me 5. So my reading of that would be no, we can't do it. I should maybe just take the time to double check. So Letters to My Successor, Whist, Watchman's Paradoxes. Yeah, so we're at the required 5, and if we have weather that's in our favor, that's still only 5. That's still only 7 of the 8 that we need. So that I am properly going to just leave to the side there. But I do want to go through my shelves, and I want to see if maybe I have... I think I did this recently as well. I want to see if I've maybe kept my ambitions too low. So we do have a 3 moon, so we can bring that up to 4, 5 with the... Yeah. Sorry, I'm forgetting the names of the items, but this is one that, with the right weather, we can move up. I really do need to find a proper shelf for these ones. So any 8 moon should be added. I think that's it, though. Okay. 8 it is. Don't think we have any scale. So Sky, that's already out because we don't have Faust. Ambrosial, again, that's out because we don't have the metal. Now, Deratio Quercum might be an interesting one. So what's the story with that? I would bring Heart in, and then Drums and... No, it's not Drums and Dances. What's my other nectar? Insects and Nectars. It's in the title. So that brings us up to 4. 5 with the mortar and pestle. So yeah, we're at 7 for that. So that's a not impossible one, but definitely one that I'm coming up short on. We do, however, have the Hissing Key. Okay, Knock, we don't have the Shapt. Orchid Transfigurations, we don't have Arab. Alright, I can't put this off anymore. I need to find a proper place for these. Wait a minute. Right, I remember. There's a reason why this one's set aside. Okay. Sorry, comrade. Setting you over here for now. All right. So this is going to be my you need to wait for the right conditions shelf. Doing better for scale than I usually do. All right, so Grail's out. I want to try and divide this into things that are like they have a shot, and I just need the right circumstances, and the ones that are like not happening. So Grail, Knock, Sky, and Forge, none of those work because I don't currently have any of those aspects for Elements of the Soul. I will, but we're not there yet. So the last thing that I want to do here is just make sure that once I've sort of organized all of this, right? So now I've got some level 10s in here. It's like, well, the level 8 would work, so why don't I try, reading something like the Codex Acephalai? And the answer for that one is like, well, because I just don't have what it takes, right? So what I really want is something like Winter, which incidentally, we have the White Book of Brittany, so let's just double check that. So we've got Whist for 2, so that brings us up to 6. Interesting, right. And then we can get up to 8, but then we don't have a tool. So if we have a snowy day, that works. But yeah, I think we're sort of stuck. And again, I'm just going to move I'm going to order these as more and less likely. I see Barrowchild and company as being the most likely. So Edge, Grail, Forge, all of those I don't have. Rose and Moth are actually ones that I have in some quantity, so... Alright. Again, nothing I'm really going to commit to yet, but gives me something to work with. Alright, as fun as that was, I think I'm actually going to need to start making some decisions for the playthrough. Let's see what the weather brings. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. Okay, so this is a big one for us because a storm just opens up possibilities. I am going to take care of the Sky stories because that is going to give us 3 Sky to work with at a time when we potentially have more Sky than I was planning on. But I'm also going to need to have a proper think, so even though we've been at this for a little bit, I'm actually going to need to sort out exactly what my priorities are here because I have a lot of things that I can do with the storm. Some of which includes getting the another room opened. So I want to make sure that I'm spending my time on the sort of thing that I value. Anyways, there's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms. And I've put off this moment long enough. I am going to get my tablet out. I had it on charge, but I think I need to take some notes. Okay, so for starters, let's just look at what we have to work with for the day's work. So in terms of rooms that I will potentially want to open, we have the Squawkphologia with 9 sky. We have the Broken Bridge, which doesn't have heart or sky. We have the Collapsed Cellar, which is 11 heart. We have the Wounded Room, which is 8 heart. We have the Ill-Omened Tower, 9. That also gives me books. Okay, so I have a slightly less compelling, but at least sort of completionist Wounded Room. I have sort of a build towards, but not like earth-shaking Squawkphologia, and I have like guaranteed books in the Ill-Omened Tower. I'm kind of already setting this to a particular path, but let's say, okay, so let's say that whatever we're doing, it's probably going to be sky. So what I would do here would be Mr. Kill. So that's worth 1 sky. We wouldn't have an element of the soul to bring here, but we would have the memory, which would be good for 4. Oh, actually, this gets interesting because I'm also short on sky things. Like I have the tea, but that's about it. Oh. Can cook a pheasant. I need the health for that though, so probably not a good idea. Okay, well, tea. 1, so 1, 5, 6. Tool is 1 more. Shucks. I'm 1 short of what or actually anything that I'd really need. Okay. So we don't use Mr. Kill to open a room. Yeah, let's, well, okay, let's do a what if on the heart, so. Alright, so the storm gives us 4 heart, 1 health would give us 5, 1 cake bowls would give us 6, or kitchen bowls. From there, I'd kind of hope that I could deal with it in just, oh yeah, the canned ham. Okay, so my outside option, the reason why I wanted to take the time to calculate this is that my outside option now is I unlock the Wounded Room. So the thing that would make me feel bad would be if I take if I get a storm in 1 season, and even though that opens up a really big opportunity, I don't plan well, and ultimately that storm goes unused, or it goes towards something like really basic. So I know no matter what happens, I at least have this base level of saying, okay, I can open up another room, and that other room may not be very exciting, but that's not the point. The point is that I have something to show for the day's work. But now what we're going to do is we're going to work on coming up with something a little more exciting. So the first thing I wanted to say is like, okay, so against Vitruvius, is it the case that I'm potentially throwing away an opportunity to read one of these books, right? So right now we have Sky Stories, which will eventually be I'll actually just write this down because I know I'm going to need to deal with this more than once. So Sky Stories is worth 3. We don't have an element of the soul with Sky, so we put nothing in there. We have the Astrolabe, which is worth 1, so that brings us up to 4. And we can reliably generate memories with 2 Sky. So that brings us up to 6. So effectively, trying to read... It saves me an element of the soul in the sense that I don't need to generate, another storm for against Vitruvius. But it's probably not the best use of a storm in a season, right? At the minimum, I would want to try and read an 8 Sky text, which is precisely what I can try. Now, this will get a little bit more interesting because of Sacra Lamea. That is one that potentially going to move quite high up. I think the catch here is that I don't think I have any other candidates. So let's just take a minute and see what the plan looks like. So Damascene Traditions of the House of Leith, we would add the Storm, we'd add the Astrolabe, eventually we would add the Sky Stories. Yeah, you know what? It feels a little weird because I feel like I'm committing myself to a decision with Sacra Lamea, which I may not yet be, I may not feel comfortable making that commitment yet. But the nice thing is that I'm only getting lessons out of this. I still have the option of changing what those lessons are used for. So that's the choice for how today is going to be spent. I'm going to adjust my notes accordingly. Now, just because it's a storm doesn't mean that I stop doing any of the other stuff that I care about. Just 1 minute here, please. All right, where are we? So we'll say the Tryst gets used towards it. I couldn't use it at this desk, but I could probably... Yeah, I could use it at the reading room. So I suppose the next question would be, do I want to take a crack at something like the Wainscot Histories or True History of Valentine de Wolfe? Or do I think it's better for me to try and... Let's do the Wainscot Histories. So we'll have to read for Revelation for that. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. And yeah, now we're just going to we'll let sort of the day pass by and see where the rest takes us. Oh, sorry, there was one other thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to get a read on who I have. So that's Aeson. Douglas. Douglas doesn't have any languages that I need. Augustus. Schaller. Serena. Wakefield. Wakefield has Kilisimi, so that makes him interesting. Dr. Peel. That is Aurora Peel. Kind of hard to... Oh, you know what? I don't think I ever read these descriptions. I'll get that in a minute, so... Yvette Southey. Connie Lee. And Fraser. Okay. On that note, in the patch notes we had a description of Connie. So it's still Fraser Strathcoyne, Princess Coquille, Amirajibi, Daymare, Peter Ekdistis, Easton Fekri, Stanislav John Schaller, Serena Blackwood, Corso Reverte, Yvette Southey, Olympe Bichet, Ibn Aladim, Zachary Wakefield, and either something changes about Connie Lee or something else will come up in terms of her relationship with the Lighthouse Institute, which does interest me. Okay. I am going to do something I don't normally do. No, you know what? I wonder if I can do this by memory. I'm not going to talk to anybody now. I'm just going to see if I can remember which languages come from which people. But for now, I'm just going to let the timer run, because I don't have that much to do. This skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. So what we're going to do here is open up or read the sky text. Again, this is a bit nerve-wracking just because I don't think I'm quite ready to have this many memories running around, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a disaster. Okay, so silence this astrolabe. I can master this mystery. And how am I for food? Some authorities claim that it's difficult to lose a pot of Peribiate ink, but they haven't lived in Hush House. So, there's a little bit of an argument for me to restore my health. But I don't need to go crazy about it. Doesn't feel good not to have. It's gotta be ink in every room of the house. Just doesn't work otherwise. Speaking of, am I actually holding to that rule? I think there was I think there might have been an ink. I think there was one ink that I consumed and didn't replace. But I can't remember. Oh, right here. All right. All right, an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. And you know what? I am precisely the sort of sucker that is going to make a second Peribiate today. Okay, we're good. Locksmith's Dream's Stolen Reflections. A fourth volume of Teresa Galmier's expansive work, no longer a discussion on the dreams of artisans, but a valuable survey of other works. The tone is calmer than that of Trespasses, but occasionally fearful, even paranoid. This volume was published in 1926, but almost immediately recalled and pulped by the publisher at the request of the author or possibly the authorities, depending on which story you believe. A few copies survive. Janus is the gatekeeper, the twin god, the god that wounds, the presager of changes, the sun, the moon, so we identify him with the watchman, the twins, the mother, with the forge, with the Menascate and the Madrigad. He cannot be all of these, can he? The Flemines knew the church, knew dry land, knew Elagabalus. Is he then Synthesis? Or is he something else? In Gallicaea they called him Aeneas Lamius, but the Obliviots are notorious for their slanders. Janus has, they say, not one face, but two, to which I reply, why only one? Why only two? Hersault and Coseley, according to Thomas Love Denman, once agreed that Janus was all the gods and none, but later Hersault described him as all the gods, and Coseley favored none. Denman was a sinister dilettante, but this rings true of them both. Okay, so we've got the Revelation, remembering that the Revelation was so that we could read the Wainscot histories, so we're going to move on to that now. Oh, more than I need. Eh. Okay. If I'm trying to remember, so I think Schaller gives me Crack Track. Not that I'm in a position to change any of that. Fekri gives me Deep Mandiac. I actually don't remember, but Yvette Southey might have Erica Payan, if I recall correctly. I know Julian Coseley does, but we'd have to wait for a certain season for that to happen. Now, Kernwick Hennebeck is a tough one. I may be... I'm not 100% on that one. Hyksos is a tough one, actually. So I know from the previous playthrough we had an opportunity to learn it, and I didn't, and I've regretted it now. Kilisimi, we said that Wakefield could give us that. Vac, I don't think... No, hang on. Aaron Peel. And then I remember Fraser Strathcoyne could give us Ramsund. So I don't know, I feel like most of the languages, not all of them, but a lot of the languages are ones that are actually available to us if we just write the right people. So I think what I'll do, once I get sort of my replacement inks in place, maybe we'll spend a little bit of time inviting people to Hush House for language lessons, and then I can get a few more elements of the soul locked into the Tree of Wisdoms. You'll be lurking, but hope you're having a fantastic stream. I'm a little worn out, Ulgrins, but thank you very much. I hope you have a lovely evening yourself. But yeah, I mean, I would want to bring people in sooner rather than later, for the simple reason that if I, like, the sooner I get those languages, the sooner I get... Oh, hang on, Erica Payan was on my, No, sorry, it was Crack Track. So Erica Payan is accounted for. Yeah, so maybe I'd even hold off on bringing the Crack Track in now that I think of it. Okay. Damascene traditions of the House of Leith. The House of Leith is an order of immortals who sought obscurity, rejecting their past and future. If the author of this short text is to be believed, the initiates of the Damascene branch were much more radical than their fellows elsewhere. The house generally forbade any potentially procreative activities for fear of the terrible consequences of too long bearing a child. The Damascene order took this much further. At one point, male initiates were required to undergo castration, and female initiates to strangle any children they had previously born. These measures were so horrific that the order was shaken by repeated schisms, and eventually absorbed into the local Sisterhood of the Knot as a society of healers and exorcists. So this is an impulse text. I can never remember where I put these things. All right. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky. So Sacralamea, so first of all, Sacralamea is something that can go to Horomachistry or Hushery. Now, I'm not too... It's not catastrophic if I put the 2 into Sacralamea. What that would do is that would tell me, okay, I'm gonna have to put something into like, you know, level 4 or on one of those 2, but I don't have anything else that can go to level 4. So all that I'm really doing is sort of locking myself into one particular path. And as it happens, Horamakastri... Actually, hang on. Did I say Horamakastri from 6 to 9, or was it Ithistry 6 to 9? I think it should be... I think it should be Ithistry. Because if I recall correctly, Horamakastri takes us to Birdsong. Why on earth didn't I write Ithistry? In fact, I'm starting to doubt... There's a few funny entries here on this one. Vesper says, imagine not being gay and then being forced to exorcise demons and be chased all your life. Couldn't be you. Have you undergone a bit of a change in your life, Vesper? Sorry, I know you're talking about the Damascene Order of the... Sorry. Damascene Order of the House of Leith. I believe there are other texts that are... Oh, wait, no, sorry, because you're also talking about the other texts which talk about their exceptions to try and get around the issue. Sorry, I'm just catching up. You're too clever for me. Lovely to see you, by the way, Vesper, for those of you not familiar with him. Vesper Fortune, the Bat of Fortune, actually sort of surprised me the other day, not because I didn't know he wrote, but I didn't realize he was so close to publishing. He actually just recently produced a novella, which incidentally, if you have a link that you want to share with people, please feel free to do so. I still need to get around to it, but then I also was very late in start, or not very, I've been later, but I was late in starting today, so it's late for everybody. You're not exclusive to you, Vesper. But yes, I was pleasantly surprised when I got a novella. Oh, that's a few years old. Well, still, if you have a link, feel free to share it. You may have actually shared the link already, and I'm only just realizing now that you've actually had that book for your debut novel. Man, I can't even write a short story. Anyways, Vesper is somebody who I originally found through Cultist Simulator. I hosted him after playing Book of Hours. He's definitely a very friendly streamer, somebody who does a very wide variety of games, and has actually also gifted the Ace Attorney series to the stream, which, again, I'm wondering when I'm going to find the time to play, but I think that is one a lot of people are really going to enjoy seeing be played, so you have him to thank for the forthcoming Ace Attorney games, whenever that is. Okay, sorry, I need to think. So for Sacralamea, I think I made a note here. So it's Metal for Horamakastri and Trist for Hushery. Now the catch is that I don't really have... There's not a major argument one way or the other for... like, yes, I have 2 Trist now, but I want 8 in the end. So there's at some point I'm going to have to put it in one of those slots. Yeah, and this chart that I've written for myself is completely wrong, so I'm just going to get rid of it. I suspect this is for another playthrough that I did, but... Oh, that's right. Darn it. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm losing it. I may take a small break to refill my tea, because I'm obviously making some big blunders here, and it's getting in the way of the playthrough, so... Sorry, just give me a moment. All right, this is the insanity I'm a little more familiar with. Yeah, so Horamakastri 1 through 9, Bosk 1 through 9, Hushery 1 through 9, Nyctodromy 4 through 9, Ithistry, Birdsong, Preservation, and Skolakosophy 5 through 9, and Illumination. I think that's a 7 through 9. I have absolutely no idea what some of these things that I'm writing say. Good Lord. Something about food? Yeah, I got nothing. So I worked out my invitations. I think I'll keep those. Sorry, I'm just taking a look at my notes here, and I'm trying to clear out the things that aren't relevant to... Like, I have a few Salon notes, and I don't mind... I don't mind keeping a few down, because there's sort of, you know, there's the food and drink and all of that. But I don't need to make a note of, like, oh, I have potatoes right now, or I have, you know, I need to worry about forage for the first course or something like that. Okay. I was also trying to work out the game plan for inviting people for the Salon. I think I'm just going to get rid of those, because I'm going to have more Elements of the Soul, and I'm going to have a wider variety when the time comes. My apologies, I am almost done. Okay, so I got a bunch of notes in terms of creating dishes, which is something I will get to when I have more health. Okay. But unfortunately, this hasn't brought me any closer to deciding about Sacralamea. So there's sort of arguments both ways on this one. So the part that makes this particularly complicated is that I have... So for Hushery, I know I've already got... Or I will... Sorry, actually, Hushery is unique in the sense I already have the Tryst committed. Horamakastri, again, is one that I'm going to go from bottom to top, so really I can put that in position 2 through 4, anything else. But if I don't actually start making some hard decisions on these things, I'm going to wind up in a situation where I feel limited by my options. So what I'd like to do is either make the positive case for saying we're going to take Sacralamea up to 4, or I would like to make the case saying that, you know, we're going to level up one of these lower level ones, right? We'll bring Resurgences and Emergences up to 2, and then we'll make sure that, I don't know, Resurgences and Emergences because it's got Moth. and Applebright Euphonies. And that's sort of a way of sort of diffusing out the various skills. And I'll be honest, like that's not a terrible way to go, right? Because it ensures that there's something for each of the levels. Like I'm not too committed to Path That Way. The only problem is that does limit the types of books that I can wind up reading. And I'm really sorry that it's taking me this amount of time to figure this out. And sadly, I cannot kick this can down the road. I need to make a choice if I want to use the impulse. I think what I'm going to do... This isn't really about the decision making. It's more the fact that I'm sort of feeling in a little bit of a fog. I'm going to go make some tea because it's already the 1 hour mark. And I'm hoping that maybe walking around and having a stretch and so on and so forth will give me some clarity and actually, allow me to move on with this stream. So I'm sorry for those of you that have been waiting for something to happen. I just need to get myself sorted out, and then we will be back for some more Book of Hours in just a little bit. All right, sorry about that wait. I tried to I tried to brew tea, which I sort of did, but it's also quite dark, so my cup runneth over, or at least it was on the verge of runneth over. um, and I tried heroically to bring it over, but no such luck. So I just wound up with hot water on my hand and going back to the kitchen to get back into place. Okay, so I'm going to sort of split the difference on this one. I'll confess I'm not crazy about this strategy, but I think early on this will hurt bounty. I think so. If I do this for too long, I'm going to be very sad. But I think this time around, I'm going to bring up sort of the floor, and there's going to be a couple of conditions by which I choose some skills. Now, the thing is that if I make this a habit, I'm going to wind up in a situation where I want a high-level skill so that I can read a difficult book, and I won't have it. But I think for this early period, the consequences of doing that will be less. So, let's take a minute here. So we've got Heart and Winter, Heart and Nectar. Well, actually, sorry, that Nectar is not that exciting. So we have Heart and Winter, Scale, Moth, Knock. Okay, we do have Nectar. Okay, so the ones that I'm not really seeing super exciting entries for, I don't think we will have a 3 edge. So I'm wondering if there's... I don't think there's a Moth edge, and I don't think there's a Sky edge. The Resurgences and Emergences is a little tempting, but we already have 2 Grail from Pentiments and Precursors. So this seemed like a good idea at the time, but I'm not really getting myself a huge advantage. Actually, Bells and Braziers, that is one that I definitely want to level up. Unfortunately, it's not a Mothy one, but what I'll do here is I'm going to push that up to the top of the list. So that's candidate number 1. And the big advantage of that is we didn't really have any Forge to work with, so that'll change. We'll have some extra Knock, lots of extra Sky. So yeah, the one that really would have tipped the balance here would have been an Edge. But I don't think there's any really suitable candidates for that. I wouldn't say no to Rites of the Roots. It just feels a little less exciting than some of the other options that I could be working with. And I do have a weak preference for a Mothier option. I mean, in the absence of an alternative, Resurgences and Emergences will do, I suppose. Okay, so then the other consideration here is, okay, so Furs and Feathers were good, Lockworks and Clockworks were good, Hissing Key is Serpents and Venoms. So that's sorted. Tantra of Worms would be Coil and Chasm. Of course, these are level 8, so there's going to be 2 of each of these. So that's going to cause me all sorts of... Like, so this is... I kind of want to be clear on this. Like, I really am kicking the can down the road, but not that far, given that we'll be working on the Hissing Key and the Tantra of Worms. But I think, at least at a minimum, I've got some basics to work with here. So it'll be Resurgences and Emergences. I guess I can use the Occult Scrap in a pinch, but maybe we wait for the end of the day on that. Okay. I think I have the game plan. Not the Foundry. Not so physical. I can brew an ink which ties the naming to the named. So again, the big idea behind these will be that I can the next batch that I make, really it's going to be about inviting more guests to Hush House. So it's fair to say that unless otherwise required, the health is going to be going towards brewing inks to invite people to teach me languages. This, of course, is also going to mean that I will... I'm going to be using up quite a bit of my Spintria, but I mean, I figure it's not bad to do that now while books are relatively difficult for me to read. This is a future me problem. Future me isn't going to like it, but it's going to prevent dystopian future me. I should also take a minute here and see... I'm going to need to make some choices soon about my Elements of the Soul, but we should be good. Okay, the Wainscot History, subtitled Stories from Behind the Walls, a miscellany of non-traditional histories, including battles not generally acknowledged and countries which appear on no map, told in a playful, apparently fictional manner. Gore does not mention the Mansis directly, but constant coy metaphorical references to ascending the staircase of years, to the doors of sleep, and to the blue light of dawn suggests he had commerce with the unseen world. It was common in that time to speak of the division of the sun, by which contemporaries understood the eruption of barbarian forces and of their uncouth gods. So there's our auroral contemplations. Ooh, contradiction, that's good. I don't remember if we had contradictions already, but we did. Okay, fair enough. Now, I don't think I can actually keep that overnight. All right. Tricky. I'm probably going to regret this, but pour out. Pour it out. So let's get this Tryst back. Quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. So the hope here is that I'm going to get the Tryst in time to be able to level up something with Sacra Lamea, and then by the time I get my Whist back, I'll be able to use that to level up Auroral Contemplations before dawn. And I might as well pour out the remaining cup. All right. I think this was a replacement for Nona's desk. I know it's a little silly to just be hoarding all of the inks like this, but I do kind of like the idea of having writing material in every room. Okay, so we definitely need this one back. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. We might make it. We should probably make it. So again, slightly annoying that it's resurgences and emergences, but we will overcome. One thing I might do, this isn't the most exciting way of doing it, but I also want to try and play in a way that doesn't have me constantly consulting a wiki or even my old notes or anything like that. I mean, I'll give myself the option, but one thing I might do is try and prioritize putting the skills that have like more overall slots higher. Like what I'm talking about is crafting. So if I take a look at resurgences and emergences, we've got, you know, 2 5s, 2 10s, but 3 15s. And then we can contrast that to, I can never remember which ones are which. Maybe wolf stories? Oh, well, sorry, I've got to pick something of the right kind. Let's see here. Okay, door and wall's not a bad example. So like door and wall might be a candidate for something that is a little bit lower on the list. Now, there's problems with that, right? Because Glassfinger Toxin is very helpful to make, and, you know, maybe I would like to, you know, maybe I'd like to have something that reliably generates Glassfinger Toxin. Not to suggest that that's my only option there, but like that's reflexively thinking that, again, there's any number of ways that that my choices can kind of, you know, sabotage the playthrough later. But on the other hand, the one guaranteed way to sabotage the playthrough is to just do nothing, or to just constantly stay at this sort of flat level. So what I'm kind of doing right now is just earning the chance to get a few more levels, essentially while I'm getting the languages. And then after that, it's sort of time to say, okay, let's see, let's make some decisions in terms of what ones I want to level up. Inks are usually very helpful, but they're not the only option. And of course, inks can be made with the other skills. But part of this is I don't want to completely ignore. Like I don't want to put the playthrough on hold to like develop the perfect strategy, but on the other hand, I don't want to ignore the realities of getting some better options over, or like some, like, sorry, I want to still pick some options that I think are consistent with the character. I don't get a chance to name the character, so it would be nice if I could at least express personality through the memories I commit. Okay, there's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2, which will increase its aspects, which will help with crafting, and make it suitable for the higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms if you haven't already committed it. So, not a terrible day. We'll be moving into winter fairly soon. The other thing that's nice, I don't really need to worry about Numa that much, but if we were to wind up saying, okay, Sacre Lamé is the only game in town, you know, I'd be able to commit that without too much trouble. The skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. So, Forge or Sky. I think most of the winter weather that will potentially help me level up Bells and Braziers is pretty good, so I don't really want to. I don't really want to use it, but we'll see what the day brings me. We'll leave one no. How on earth did I think I was going to level up Bells and Braziers if I don't have a Forge or Sky element of the soul? I wonder about myself sometimes. Okay, well, that just puts my need for inks up pretty high. All right, so let's see where the day takes us. Hail. Okay, it is winter. Current affairs. What is happening in the world beyond Brandkrug? What visitors will the season bring? So, this is, again, another opportunity for us to read difficult texts. As far as the sky is concerned, we're covered. So this would really be an opportunity for us to read something with intense edge. And that's 7 shards, so that would be a fairly tall order at the best of times. This is maybe a point where I would want to try and consider putting that hail towards another skill. So, like, if I can find a way to... if I can find a way to get Sacralamea committed, so this would essentially mean getting a medal or a Faust today. I should take it. Actually, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna make some ink. So craft Peribiot. So what I'm thinking here, so we just said, right, the challenge is that I need either a forge or a I need a forge or a sky. So if I learn Ericapean, that would be Faust. And then if I learn Deep Mandaic, that's metal. And more importantly, metal would be for Horamakistry. So I think in this case here, I'd kind of like to learn both, but I believe Isen Fekri will teach me Deep Mandaic. So that kind of seems like just a natural... that just seems like a natural fit. Yeah, so here's what we're going to do. We will take my writing case. We just need any old heart at this point. Oh, right. Can't just be any old heart. Actually, don't think I can use this. Oh, yes, I can. Oh, lovely. I also don't need an element of the soul, which is good to know. Okay. So request Isen's presence. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Isen to Brandkrug. One other thing I forgot to do is actually read these descriptions here. So we're going to do this right now. One, because it sometimes helps me find typos, but number two, because it's fun to read. Writing case. A sturdy brass-cornered writing case, which has been of service to at least 3 librarians of the house. Use your writing case in a desk with ink to invite visitors to a salon. To invite villagers, add your writing case as a discussion subject when you visit them in Brandkrug. Ah, okay. I don't know if that is new, but I definitely missed that when I wanted to invite Mr. Kill. Isen's address, Water Lane, Steeple Aston. Douglas Moore's address, Suppression Bureau, Hobbs End, London. Agdistas address, Deutsche Tanzbrunn, Berlin. Father Stanislav's address, Prairie de Capitan, Morbihan. Serena's address, Cecil Hotel, Alexandria. Zachary's address. One is instructed to address the letter literally, house, street, town, shire, country. Peel's address, Cardia House, Scania, Crete. Yvette's address, St. David Hill, Exeter. Connie's address, Hotel Storken, Zurich. And Fraser's address, Strathcoyne's House, Midsummer, Norton. All right. Still trying to think whether or not I can use the hail for anything exciting. Okay, so let's imagine here for a minute that I wind up with some sort of edge to work with. So I have 5, 6 with a tool. Yeah, I think my Auroral Contemplations is about as good as I can get. I can try and make some kind of music, but what does that really get me? So yeah, I think in this case we're just going to use it for leveling something up. Not the most exciting choice, but it's one that works. Now I just need to post it. I wonder what happens. This will be a disaster if Eason wants to visit, but send an invitation to a visitor. Stamp, envelope, send. Did Eason receive my invitation? I also kind of need to be careful in terms of the order in which I do some of this stuff, because if I wind up blocking the visitor, that has its own challenges too. But I think I know how I'm going to handle this. So first of all, I do actually need to get the other work done. So I can't do anything with the... Oh, you know what? I should probably be reading... Yeah, you know what? The order this doesn't matter. Okay, so let's read the... It's the same problem all over again, isn't it? Okay, we're going to read the True History of Valentine de Wolf. We're actually going to use the Hail in this, oddly enough. But we're going to use it in the reading room. I guess it doesn't really... Well, we can use Sky Stories. Alright, I can master this mystery, enough sky to match mystery sky. Now, one thing I do want to think about in future, I do need to think about where the Shapt is coming from, because that... Well, the Shapt or the Faust. So, Ericapaean, I think, is Dr. Southey. Shapt... I think I've actually shut myself out of in terms of the language list. So Metal for Deepmandaic, Faust for Ericapaean, Trist for Fusine, Wist for Henneveck, Arab for Skolakosophy. I could have gotten Shapt if I put it with Nyctodromi, but I didn't. Kilisimi gets me health. Now that one's a bit of a priority because that'll mean that I can invite more people. So maybe I'll talk to Wakefield shortly after. Sabazine gets me Trist, and Vac gets me Fet. And actually noticing that I get 2 Trist from the languages already, that might inform some choices in terms of what skills I commit to the Tree of Wisdoms. We'll see. I think a lot of this rests, though, on who the visitor is. Alright, an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. It's winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the Sweet Bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Developments in the world beyond Brandkrug, drawing a new incident. And some authorities claim that it is difficult to lose a pot of Peribiad ink, but they haven't lived in Hush House. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'll restore the health with the glass of water that I have, and then I'm going to make another pot of ink, just because it's clear that I'm going to be pushing pretty hard on visitors. Well, hello there, Lieutenant Arthur Moore, retired. I don't believe we've had you visit yet. The affair of the second skin. Immortals change more slowly than most of us, but even immortals change sometimes. In the city of Marrakesh, the Labite Abykassis has begun to a dramatic and dangerous metamorphosis, one that's alarming friends and enemies alike. And Lieutenant Arthur Thomas Moore, retired. Hero, pilgrim, traitor. He'll always be a soldier, but never again can he be only a soldier. So, notably, he does know Sabazine, but he's not in my address book yet. So, and he prefers lantern, food, and drink, which will make him quite difficult to invite, actually, but I'm going to make a note here. Oh, I actually put a note here at the bottom of the page. So, Shalar, Cracktrack, Isan, Mandayak. Okay. That'll be easy to solve. I'm going to prioritize Fekri first, I think. But it might be nice to know that I have a bed to put Arthur Moore in if I need. Because I'm occupying this one. I actually don't think we have an edge bed. So maybe I do need to give him what he needs first. Well, I guess the urgency for the Sacralamea isn't there anymore, so yeah, we're going to do that. Good day to you. May I come in? Labites are much favored at the Labyrinth of Lions. Abykassis himself made a pilgrimage there not long ago. When they break faith with the Lionsmith, the duty often falls to me and my companions, the duty to bring them to the Labyrinth for punishment. I thought you were cool, Thomas Moore. To slay a Labite, that is difficult. To take a Labite alive, that is difficult enough to bring me here, to you, for help. Alright, so we don't need a lot of edge, but I don't think we have much. Nope, this'll work for him. So, Son's Lament. I'm resolved not to fail in this matter, but what will become of Abykassis in the coils of the labyrinth, I cannot say. So that's a minute that's going to be occupied. Formerly, Isan was a healer. He was not human. He was Secretary Solvent of Hush House, but not all at the same time. Fussy, kind, famously foul to look upon. So we're just going to hang out with him for a little bit. I do need to decide what I want to do with these remaining elements of the soul, but right now, it's kind of open season. I guess one thing I might want to consider would be Crowcross Sands. Do I want to try and check that out? I don't quite have the same need to anymore. For furs and feathers, we don't really have anything unless I use my health. But then maybe what we get from furs and feathers we might be able to use with bells and braziers when the time comes. But then bells and braziers doesn't need an element of the soul because we'll be getting that element of the soul. Yeah, let's see what happens after we finish reading the books. I feel like I've stalled out a little bit, but it's just because I'm trying to get a few things lined up. A Tree History of Valentine de Wolf, written in the third person by Valentine de Wolf. Rarely coherent, though it includes some useful footnotes on falconry and exotic veterinary medicine. Valentine is obsessed with the meaning of the DeWolf coat of arms. On a field or a chevron in arched gulls between two Corby heads, a raised sable in chief, and a wolf sagent sable in base. I really wonder, like, I finally have been, like, I took some time to look at Canada's coat of arms, so I understand this a little bit more, but I wonder if this is something that they knew prior to writing, or if this is something specifically that, if this was a product of some research. I also kind of like the fact that you can never really tell when it comes to Weather Factory games. All right. We've got Arthur Moore's card and a Bronze Spintria. So, Tiberiosity, thank you very much for the raid. How are you doing tonight? Let's think this through. I'm going to wait 26 seconds. I want to see what the result of this. Doing great, but you got to run. Your insides are not approving of dinner. I am sorry to hear that. Best of luck to you. Thank you for stopping by and hosting us, but please take care of yourself. Run, my good man. Run. Oh, I'm completely wasting time. I might have actually blown it waiting this long, so it's good to be back. Thank you for seeing me. I guess the bronze will do. Tutoring Deep Mandaic. A visitor can teach me the rudiments of this resonant language. So 3 minutes. 1, 2... Yeah, I think that's going to take us overnight. Which is fine. But that now means... I'm going to wait the 5 seconds because there's going to be a couple things that I may or may not wait for. A True History of Valentine DeWolf. Yeah, we'll read it from the top. Written in the third person by Valentine DeWolf, rarely coherent, though it includes some useful footnotes on falconry and on exotic veterinary medicine. Valentine is obsessed with the meaning of the DeWolf coat and arms. On a field or a chevron in arched gulls between two Corby heads, a raised sable in chief and a wolf sagent sable in base. Long of the two birds pursued my blood, yet one is no crow, yet it is darker. Long has the wolf rolled itself in gold, like a clovered cow, until its slobberings stain our thoughts. Okay. So this is definitely something that gets used with furs and feathers. So as much as I would like to make more ink, I can use the health with the... I can use the health with the combination here. Especially because we don't get to keep any of these others. Okay, I see how this is coming together now. So for furs and feathers, we combine like so. There's always more to learn. And then I'm just trying to think through to the end of the day. I was originally going to say that I can keep a sky memory in the back. But the thing is, if I'm using Sacra Lamea... No, if I'm leveling up Bells and Braziers, I can't use the Occult Scrap. That's actually slightly inconvenient. Okay, so maybe it's not such a bad idea I get a Storm or something like that. I'm not opposed to it. But I could still use the whist for that. So, what I'm going to do is take the moor. We'll go for a walk. I'll take Crowcross Sands. Take a long walk along the ocean's side. If I know what to look for, I might find something the ocean has forsaken. And I'm really trying to think if there's anything I want to do with the whist, and I actually don't think there is, so let's take the time and just read a book. So, actually, you know what, I've read both of these and solace is sufficient, so... Oh man, you know, this is one of my favorite things about Book of Hours, really, because, like, if you think about it, the majority of people who play this game, like, they don't have these really helpful people who randomly tell them stuff they already know, even though they don't ask about it. And, like, if you think about it, it's kind of tragic that the majority of people will actually be playing the game this way. I don't know how they get through it, frankly. But I don't need to worry about that. Even when I don't ask for it, I get it. How lucky am I, right, guys? I'm sorry. I've really tried to rein this in, but, like, this is the third time today. Could you please just let me play the game? I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Okay. So yeah, giving up the health sort of threw things out of balance a little bit. But I mean, again, I can restore the inks whenever I want. I am on a little bit of a timeline in terms of learning the various languages, just because those are a hold up for some of the other leveling I was going to do. I have no idea why I thought I was going to be able to level up skills without getting the elements of the soul. But doesn't make sense to try and do anything with the health now because it's going to take too long. Well, that's not entirely true. I could probably get another ink out, but then I'd have to give up the... No, it's all... I mean, so this is a big one for me, right? Is like, I am going to get grouchy about this sort of stuff just because this has been true since I ever stream. But the one thing I want to say is, like, once it is said and once somebody's compliant, I don't want somebody to sort of be piled on or that. So I appreciate it, but I just want to say it's like, Amenophis said noted apologies. I needn't make it any further than that. I appreciate it, Vesper, because I know you've said that to the previous one before. But it's like, if I haven't mentioned it and somebody says something, it's totally fine. If I've said it, if it's been acknowledged, the rule for me is I actually, so I'll take the time to talk about this just because the last stream there was someone who followed, told me how to play. I said, please don't do that. And they got mad and unfollowed. Like, it's possibly the shortest follow I've ever had in the channel. So my deal on this is that I would actually like people to be able to stay and enjoy the stream, but I also do this for fun, right? Like, I'm never going to make enough money doing this to do this as a living. And even if I could, it may not be the most rewarding way of doing it. So the deal is that I want to stream in a way that it is enjoyable for me. But the one thing that I really noticed, and the reason why I want to highlight this, is that I do occasionally go on Twitch as a viewer. And there was somebody who I had watched, and it was always a very tenuous kind of viewership, because what had happened with me was I would watch the channel and they would very obviously not kind of follow what I was saying, or if I was saying something, they would always kind of assume like the stupidest version of it, right? So like even something like, making a joke that there was there's a province in Canada called Saskatchewan. And there's a party called the Saskatchewan Party, and they are fairly conservative in their political beliefs. But unlike the usual coloring in terms of Canada, like they're not, like the Liberals are red and the Conservatives are blue. So obviously for Americans, it just winds up reversing things. But the Saskatchewan Party, despite being a conservative party, is actually green. That is like that party's colors. And so I very jokingly made reference to the Saskatchewan Party, again, the quite different from what you would expect, as being the quote-unquote green party running the province. And I think this is fairly self-explanatory, but like, inevitably a joke like that, they're like, no, they're not green. They're very conservative, and then like going on and on and on, talking as if I don't understand Canadian. Maybe some context, which nobody had, like, I'm not going to get after them for that. But I've worked on political campaigns at the municipal, provincial, and federal level. I know a bit about Canadian politics. So, that sort of stuff happens, and you just move on, because like you just don't watch streams you don't like. But this kind of kept happening, and I'm like, okay, but they're a Canadian streamer, they're doing a couple games that I like, I'll try and like make it work. And the final breaking point for me was like somebody, I can't even remember exactly what the comment was, but like that was the time somebody wanted to like really make a moral stand about it. And I kind of ceased to be a viewer, and instead I was like a prop. And it was just kind of like, okay, it's the 2 minutes hate, we're allowed to be mean to this guy because they said this thing or whatever. And it was, to me, it was that point of like, why am I even showing up here, right? Like, okay, you can set the rules. If you don't want to talk about that stuff, that's fine, right? Like, I don't think things need to be explicitly stated for people to say, hey, I wish you didn't say that, move on. But like once the correction has been done, I actually think it can make for a really unpleasant atmosphere when people kind of flog it. So I'm sorry for going on at length. I hope Amenophiz appreciates that this is like me just speaking in general as opposed to it specifically being about him. But it's one of the things that I want to do a fine line on, which is that I appreciate it when people sort of offer the mild corrective. Because the thing is that if it doesn't get dealt with, then I just snap and I get meaner about it than I need to. But I also never want to create that situation in which someone who otherwise would have been able to enjoy the broadcast feels like they're sort of being piled on, which again is not necessarily what I thought you were doing, Vesper. But just having been on both sides of that situation, I can kind of understand how even if while the streamer is saying something, because there's a lag between saying it and then what chat will say, it can always be kind of tough when somebody sort of feels like I had a case not that long ago where there was like a streamer, like, immediately going from is like, okay, we'll stop talking about this. I got to watch this, but like somebody going from saying is like, okay, we're going to stop talking about this. And within like half a second, they were like telling someone off about. And it's like, dude, you haven't even established the rule yet. Like, so yeah, I don't know. It's just one of these things where, I don't feel bad. Just to close it off, like, I actually don't feel bad driving away people who make it unfun, right? So people who are being impolite to other people in chat, that's not great, right? I don't really see a situation where someone should be starting arguments in chat or being disrespectful or whatever. You know, but the fact of the matter is that there are things that make me more and less inclined to stream, and they do affect how the broadcast is going. Even if I wind up being and some days I'll just be tired, and some days I'll just be grouchy, and some days I'll be super chipper and like a lot more chill about things, and that's just the way people are, right? But it's usually the cases where like there are definitely a type of viewer. And I really remember back when I used to have a channel where like you wouldn't know whether or not there would ever be anybody show up. But there are definitely viewers who know full well that people are kind of desperate for views, and they will absolutely push the line as far as they possibly can. Like that sort of person, I never feel bad. I didn't even feel bad at the time because, again, getting big has never been an aspiration for the channel. Not that I'd say like no if it were to happen. It's just that there's like other stuff that's a higher priority, let's say. But yeah, those are people that I don't feel bad losing just because they want something that I am not in a position to give and I'm not inclined to give. And so that's the balance. But with that in mind, right, if I'm willing to say, you know, this is an audience I don't intend to cater to, I feel the flip side of that is to say that even if people get off on the wrong foot, I've had a person who supported an extremely unpopular American presidential candidate come into the channel and originally sort of get ready to sort of fight back on all the ordinary things that they'll be told about. And I actually heard them out, and what I noticed was the dynamic changed completely as soon as you got past that surface level stuff. I learned quite a bit about what, you know, people who prefer that candidate think about. And they were actually quite pleasant in the channel. Like there was one of the cases where I had to sort of defend and say, it's like, look, you know, being respectful means being respectful, you know. So I, you know, and as it was, you know, I don't think they like followed the channel or anything like that, but they were perfectly reasonable to have inside of the chat, especially when I suspect they kind of got it out of their system and there wasn't a whole lot of politics talked about beyond the initial side. Eventually, they just kind of told me I wasn't allowed to have an opinion because I was Canadian, and I said, "Well, that's interesting because we didn't start here, did we?" And of course, I can have an opinion, right? They I think eventually allowed that was maybe not the strongest point that they had made. But the biggest thing was they kind of acknowledged when it was pointed out that, you know, is that really. And sometimes it's just saying, is that the best you can do? And they kind of acknowledged when it was weaker, which is why they were actually somewhat enjoyable to have in the channel, because they interacted as opposed to just use it as a platform for their own stuff. So anyways, I appreciate, Aminopez, you just giving me the guidance there that, yeah, you got that it was a generalist case. Like I said, having been on both sides of it, I never want people to feel like they're in a pylon. But now that we've established, we've got the side rant and I've gotten it out of my system, we can bring the stream home for the next hour. The Orca Transfiguration's Noon, the third volume of a compilation of Quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. A long dialogue between the Mountain Mother and the Vigilant Storm describes the ways in which both mountains and storms end and the protections they use against those ends. But we must use the knife, said the lion-throned one, the noose, the flame, the waking word, against those who have passed the three-valve door, and so none may pass. That is our law and the law of the sun. All right, so that Solace is going... Oh, God. Yes, we can take Sky with us and Heart, so Solace is fine. Also, I took a Storm there earlier, but I thought for a minute, wait, I didn't check the aspects. And then for the rest of this... I need to restore the... Well, do I need to restore the Whist, actually? because... Nope, I think we just... Yeah, first of all, I was already restoring it. We'll make money with this because there's nothing else for me to do with the whisk tonight. So we'll grab whatever we can from the locations. A minute and a half I don't think is going to be enough. We'll wait for the morning to level up Sacralamea, and then I'll maybe get a little more coherent in terms of the stuff I want to make. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. Granite slab, long cold volcano blood. And whispering sand, white silver sand in which the voice of the wave lingers. Okay. I do need to figure out what my next language is going to be, so I had this all worked out too. Probably Faust would be a good one for me to get. So that would be Aracapean. And Yvette Southey isn't that hard to bring in. Yeah, 3... Okay, so I'm like 75 to 80% sure that it's Yvette Southey. Let's run with it. Or Connie. So request Yvette's presence. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Yvette to Brandkrug. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Now I just need to post it. So, I mean, it'll take a minute. I don't think it would be wrong for us to send the invitation overnight. Stamp, envelope, send. The postmistress examines the letter and deems it sufficient. It'll go with the next post, she assures me. Okay. I also need to adjust my can and can't read piles. So, Deep Mandaic, the most secret script of the innermost rites of the deep sects of the deep desert. The birth tongue, it is claimed, of the mother of ants herself. So, this goes into Horomachistry. I wanted to just double check. I'll try and get some of the lore. We did read a bunch of the lore in the previous run, so I don't feel too bad if I don't go over all of it. But we have the Chandler's Tale. There's a story known to candle makers of a guild master who made a wager with a master of the Potter's Guild. The Potter's oldest cup, she said, was older far than the Chandler's oldest candle. However often one drinks from a cup, it can always be refilled. So they brought their witnesses to the judging on the appointed day, and the Potter's witness brought a cup that he had used for 70 years until its shattering. But the Chandler's witness brought a candle 77 years old. Every month, the Chandler had bought the old stumps, returned the matter to the vat, and used them in his wares, so that each newest candle was also the oldest. Ithistry teaches us there's always a way. The Jeweler's Tale. There is a story known to jewelers of a guild master who made a wager with a keeper of butterflies. The master jeweler claimed his jeweled egg would hatch something greater than any of the butterfly keeper's chrysalids. Of course, after a month, the butterfly keeper's gardens were bright with wings, and the egg had hatched nothing at all. The jeweler, unable to pay his debts, fled into the desert with his egg. Horomachistry teaches us, know your limits. So it's a little late to get this. I don't think it would be a good idea for me to try and level up Sacralamea doing this. However, I should still keep the Solace so that I can get that committed right away. Okay. Yep. We'll move ahead. Ramsund would be nice, but that is actually one of the ones that's oh, you know what? That's not difficult anymore. I should bring Fraser Strathcoin in. So what I'm looking at right now are the languages that will get me elements of the soul that I don't yet have. So Deep Mandiant gets me metal, Aracapan gets me Faust, or rather Deep Mandiant got me metal. Aracapan gets me Faust. Now Crack Track technically could get me Faust or Core. So, and I do have the option of bringing in someone who can teach me that. But yeah, I think Ramsund is probably a decent option here. And obviously I can add more and more languages as I go by, but right now the focus is on the ones that can get me new elements of the soul, because that just opens up new possibilities. So one of the first things I'm going to do on the note of new possibilities is I'm actually going to organize the library a little bit. So, in fact, I'm going to set these aside. It's a good room to put them in. Okay. Oh yeah, let's get rid of the... So first of all, I want to double check that I have all the Fusine and Deep Mandiant texts dealt with. Okay, we're basically on the verge of getting Aracapan, so I'll add that to the... Actually, we don't know that for sure. Oh, there's a lot that we can use. Okay. Okay. Gemini Volume 1. Volume 3 I'm going to put on the too hard shelf. Iron Book is something I should be able to read right away. Of course, it's also Quenchings and Quellings. I feel like there's something about taking my original skill and taking that to the top. I don't oppose that particular one, but I'll probably want to be careful about it. Okay, Mixabilix is a tough one. So is Death and Evasions, though. Okay. Don't know Vac yet. But the good news is I'm starting to free up some space in the library again. So I suspect by the time... Alright, I give up. Nice. Okay. So I'm thinking... Let's make this a salt shelf. So then this can be Savage Hymns. I'm sure I'm going to have to move this stuff around later, but at least I kind of have all my books in one place again. Okay, so Scar in the Sky 14 and 12. So we'll sort out the 14 first. Well, actually, we can just put the 12 in its place. There we go. I just need to find where the 14 start. It's going to be very sad once I start having some higher leveled items, but that's looking better. And then I suppose I should think a little bit. So if we've got Ambrosial, right now I'm leveling up Bells and Brazieries, so that gives us 5 for the Forge. Sorry, I'm going to take a minute to think this through. So 5 for the Forge, at which point if we bring in a memory, that's 7, and then we just add the spanners and we're good. So we should add the Forge stuff at minimum to the list. Which also means that we have more shelves available as I get more memories. Yeah, I'm going to leave the rest of these aside, but I actually have too many books I can read now. Nice problem to have, but that's what committing one one language does for me. Okay, but yeah, I think we're on a pretty good trajectory. The one, I suppose, one challenge that I'm thinking about right now is, oh man, we're trying to get the this would have been a good time for me to try and get core. So I suppose I could try against Vitruvius. And as long as I get the Ericapean, we're good. Alright, yes. We will read against Vitruvius. Feels a little bad to... Well, actually, yeah, let's think about this. So I could get against Vitruvius anytime that I want. If I use the Wounded Room... especially... no, the sky that I get is no different than what I'd already get from Mr. Kill. Okay. Got excited for no reason. So the Gale... 3 sky, 3... heart... tool, 1 of each. Okay, so for sky we get 3, 5 for heart. So we've got the Gale, then we could add the health for 4, tool for 5, drink for 6. And then ham for 8. So yeah, we're gonna bring in Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. The Sweet Bones, we will go to work. I'm trying to think the order in which I want to try and do a couple of these things. So I can still try to read against Vitruvius. Or the true history. Wait, we already read the true history of Valentine de Wolf. We need a bigger fear shelf. not quite what I meant. All right. I'm sure I'll figure out what I want to do with that slot at some point, but this is good for now. So, if I take Sky Stories with a Storm, that's 5. Add the Astrolabe. Yeah, so we will use the Tryst to get the Storm. We could potentially get that from Mr. Kill, but obviously the talk verb is going to be occupied for quite some time. So we'll read Apollo and Marsyas to get the ball rolling on that. We will go back to the moor, I think, with our Fett. Sorry, taking a minute to think that through. So if I do that... Yeah, I'm still trying to read against Vitruvius, but we will be able to level that up. Yeah, we're fine. And we'll use the preliminal meter. Rhyme rims the Mortarns. So right now I'm just waiting for the memory to come in. So let's take our Sacralimea. No, not Sacralimea. Bells and Braziaries. Solace, Metal. Alright, so we've cleared out the queue, which was one of the first things that I wanted to do. And I'm sorry if it seems like I'm sort of... I have half an idea and then I just sort of vanish away. It's mostly I was trying to think what's the best way for me to sort of navigate through that. So now I've sort of got what my main focus was going to be. The health is going to be used with Mr. Kill. The Tryst is going to be used once I can read the book. So one thing that might seem a little counterintuitive. Okay, so It Is Written is definitely going on the to-read list. So these are doubling up things I already have, as is this one. Menescate Reflections. I can never remember if I have that one or not. Yes, I do. Okay. And Spices and Savors we definitely have. So these are the ones... I'm setting these ones aside just because these are like... Ooh, I need to make a choice. And I think Letters to My Successor... now Letters to My Successor is one when I have the Faust I'm going to want to read because of the Inks of Revelation. Okay. I think we have enough to take care of the next few days. Mr. Kill can always spare a few hours to help a friend. A coffin maker's assistant, a tamer of trees, a worker of woods, a consigner of cadavers. He has also been known to try his hand very diffidently at poetry. So, collaborate health. I am ready to lend my limbs. Boosts heart, scale, and nectar. Now again, we're going to be short on time with this, right? We're bringing in Yvette Southey. But I'm spending all this time leveling up Mr. Kill. And this is just because this is how it turned out, right? A gale is a terrible thing to waste. Dr. Yvette Southey, playwright, philologist, psychoanalyst, as happy with questions as with answers. All right, so understands Ericapean. I'm hoping that will be the one that comes up rather than Hennebeck, but we'll see. Skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. I think I'm actually going to take the time to bring the health back after working at the Sweet Bones. But let's not lose any time with the Coffin Maker's assistants. Talk about the weather, more useful than one might expect, especially in Britain. And this is dandelion wine, so I'm not actually going to use this, but... yeah, so it's Schloss Jannings that I'll be serving up. Apollo and Marsyas, the libretto of a lost opera concerning the contest between Apollo and Marsyas and its tragic outcome. The librettist is identified only by their initials. In the original myth, Marsyas lost the musical contest and was flayed by Apollo, who later regretted it. In this version, Marsyas' skin has a further history. The skin of Marsyas gives oracles and is later smuggled to Phrygia, where the priestesses of Cybele use it for a drum. At the climax, the striking of the drum drives would-be violators of the priestesses to suicidal madness. The opera ends with a wistful hymn from the youngest priestess on the beauty of mountain pines. Now, I just remembered that one of the things I wanted to work towards was Horns and Ivory's level 10. I couldn't have done anything with Sacra Lamea to bring this up, so that's fine. But I think what this is going to mean is that as I read some of these other scale texts, I think I'm actually going to push very hard to push Horns and Ivories up to that level 10, even if it means I don't get to commit it to the Tree of Wisdoms. Especially because, to my knowledge, level 10 is not a thing, right? You can get up to level 9. But it was the God Awakened with Stanislav. The alternative is to give him a book, but I don't want to give him the book because of the implications. Okay, an afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. I should pour the wine at some point, so let's get that. Just double checking the... yeah, it's gotta be Jannings. Pour out. Poured out. Dry aromatic white wine. Let's take advantage of the weather while it lasts. Alright, moving on. So we'll feed him the wine. This brings us up to 5. I'm not sure why I decided not to read the book that I got that out for. So this is for Against Vitruvius. So with that, we'll take Sky Stories, we'll add the Astrolabe, and the Memory. I can master this mystery. So from there, basically the rest of the day is driven by the Sweet Bones, but we've actually gotten a fair amount done. So by the end of today, we will take Mr. Kill up to the room. So we'll unlock a new room. We'll have another language, and because we have another language, we will have a animal bones. What remains? Because we have another language, we will have another element of the soul. Assuming it's the right language. Down to the Grussians. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. So let's take the ham. I actually just like how round the pig is on this. I can offer my assistants something to eat. This will increase their aspects. It's also just friendly. The taste will remain reliably unchanged for many years to come, which is, in some respects, an advantage. I really do want to start cooking some of this stuff. I was quite excited by some of the possibilities when we were preparing for the first salon, but I also sort of know there are there's a couple things that I need to do before I do the next one. So one of those things is I just need to get more elements of the soul. I don't know if this is a specific design choice to... I was saving that iron so I could give it to Southie. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. I know we get the change back. It's just, I like handing exact change if I can. Sorry, should be making the ink. Yes, I'm making the ink. But then I have to give up the cake bowls. So we're waiting on that. Sustenance has boosted their aspects appropriately. Proffer a tool. I can lend my assistant something to help increasing their abilities. Okay, let's think a little bit about scale stuff that I can... Okay, so Inks of Power, I think I'm going to... And Revelation, I think I'm actually going to try and level those up. Serpents and Venoms, if we get 2 of those, that is scale, so that will take us up to 3. Coil and Chasm, that will take us up to 5. And then from there I need Knock. Well, actually, I guess with that we could technically use Lockworks and Clockworks as well. We'll see. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if I'm that committed. Hello there. Got a moment? Yay! It's Ericapaean. My visitor can teach me the rudiments of this elegant language, with its name so notoriously difficult to spell in any language, including itself. Alright. Now we make the ink. And Mr. Kill, it's a tough call, but I think in this case we'll just open the room without any further consideration. Blood drips from wet-edged cracks in the ceiling here, pooling on the floor. Another rage-fueled presence that I could use help to lay. Watchman's Paradoxes doesn't help me with the goal of leveling up Horns and Ivories because it's a Lantern and Sky one. Better now. My small regret here is I haven't found a reason to use the Occult Scrap yet. Theoretically, I might be able to use it with Lockworks and Clockworks. Alright, Against Vitruvius, a 14th century treatise on esoteric mechanics and parahydraulics by Abbot Ranulf, best known as the Mason Architect. Ranulf describes how he tested some of these techniques in the construction of the Winter Tower, now called the Long Tower. He admits to unexpected consequences. Ranulf mentions that the Tower of Ely Cathedral collapsed around the time the Winter Tower was completed, although he stops short of suggesting that one was the cause of another. A tower falls, a tower rises, is all he'll commit to. Alright, pattern. I don't recall if we have had a pattern before. I'm gonna say no. What am I saying? I've got 3. Alright. This will be a little tricky because a lot of this rests on we've got Southie being done on time. Forge and Knock, I don't think our librarian... Yeah. So this is definitely a use it or lose it situation. Now this is one case, again, it depends on how badly I want the Horns and Ivories. And the answer is actually pretty badly, but I think in this case here I will level up Lockworks and Clockworks. The little ways of little machines. The servants' quarters, north. this was once the private chamber of the formidable Ernestine Peterhans, Seneschal of Brandkrug. Baron Hendrik, and afterwards his son Thomas, would both descend the back stairs to visit her in person. For counsel, most said. For prayers, others insisted. Only the very foolish ever suggested there was any improper motive for their visits. So, I can't show exactly what the event is because Stanislav isn't here, but the way that and this is one of these points where, I know there's the sign, but I'm going to highlight here, early beta. I'm talking about House of Light material, which is currently under design, and as you have probably noticed in the patch notes, there are still changes afoot, so none of this is permanent. But basically, we followed up on the Lyrian, the Lytirian, the event that we had previously, and there was an the follow-up here is basically Lieselata has been exalting willing humans with the implantation of the larval Blomberende kind at the Lytirian. Is that bad? So what we can do to sort of complete the event, we can bring Douglas in. We can bring Stanislav John Schaller in. And Schaller actually has two possible choices. One is to join in with Lieselata, and if that happens, he'll want... it was Milagro... This one. Ricardo Milagro's Beekeeper's Ends. If, on the other hand, I want him to stop it, he needs... I'm trying to recall if it is a manuscript with Horns and Ivories 10, or if it is Horns and Ivories 10 itself. If it's Horns and Ivories 10, then that implies that we can actually take these higher than before. If, on the other hand, it's a manuscript, then it's something different. But one way or the other, I'm obviously going to want to get this thing higher. So that's the reason why I want it so high, is that I'm trying to go down a particular path with Schaller. And as sort of indicated in the warning notes at the very beginning, actually, sorry, I don't think I ever read the actual House of Light notes at the start of this one. I was meaning to. But as the game sort of warns, this is actually one of the cases where choices can have permanent consequences. It's not the only place. Obviously, there's something even in the base game where there are consequences for certain choices, but I feel that this is one of these cases where you really want to be clear on what path you want things to go, because I think it will ultimately affect the creation of the Lighthouse Institute. I am inclined to say that I'll say the Faust is lost, so I will level up Lockworks and Clockworks just because it's silly to let the pattern go away for no reason. And we'll leave it here. I could, try and generate a memory to keep overnight, but it's not that big of a deal. So I think what I'll do in, the minute 14, we'll get the Faust, we'll level up Lockworks and Clockworks. And then I won't be able to do Letters to My Successor. I might do It Is Written. The catch, of course, is that then I wouldn't be able to do more ink stuff. And yes, we'll have enough to commit or to level up Lockworks and Clockworks, but I'm not going to be able to use the Faust after. Mind you, can also just use the Occult Scrap, given that we're still waiting for Arthur Moore. Alright, I've learnt enough to puzzle out books in this language, though it might be slow going. You can also use and improve this like any other skill. So effectively the money that we got from Arthur Moore has gone towards languages. That is, of course, absolutely the right call. Ericapean, a language of surpassing beauty and elusiveness, revealed through the ecstatic apprehensions of the Orphics, the Eleusinians, and the Sibyls of the Rhine. Ericapean, these mystics claimed, allows for the elaboration of hues, sensations, and states of mind too subtle for grosser tongues. And again, this one was going to be between Hushery and Illumination. Of course, I do not have Hushery as an option anymore, so we'll just commit this here. The King and the Key. There's a story told by students of light that a great and golden king held the only key to his deepest prison cell. One day he asked his minister to make 8 copies and distribute them among the people. But sire, the minister said, if a rebel contrives to enter our palace, might they not release their confederates? They might, answered the king, but all kingdoms fall, and one day I might myself seek release from that cell. Faust, sight, perception, inspiration, all the glory's gifts, one of the 9 parts of the human soul. There's always more to learn. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how that day turned out. I'm overdoing it in terms of making money, but that's life. Okay. I do not hate this idea of getting more languages. So like the Horns and Ivories thing is going to be a long-term goal anyway, so I don't see too much of a problem just waiting that out incidentally. Precariously balanced. Okay. A lot of this is probably going to rest on the weather again. But these are high priorities. These less so. Let's check out the Ericapean books. There's really just one. Alright. Now this one's worth noting, right, because Ericapean itself has 1 winter, so what I can bring to bear for the 10, we've got 4, 6, 8 with a memory, 9 with the Ericapean. Yeah, so we're still short. Alright, good to know. Excuse me. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this, but I'm going to make an ink first. Excuse me. We will still do help with letters. Can't do anything with letters to my successor. I am going to do something with it is written, so if it's 1... Oh yeah, actually, I definitely need the Peribiot in that case. I'm still gonna write a letter though. God, there was a second language that Yvette knew, and Ericapean and Henevek. Yeah, honestly, it's not that hard to bring her in. So, hey, Chunky Man Gamer, good to see you. No, it's you're all very kind about the rants, but all right. Yeah, I think we're gonna try and actually, if nothing else, this is interesting just because I'll see whether or not we can invite someone in such close proximity. So I guess close proximity is not quite. Anyways, we can see whether or not we can bring them so soon after. I suspect we can because we've done that before, but it would be nice to verify. Oh man, that's really given me a little bit of everything. Okay. Henevek was going to get me a whist, so it would have been better to invite Fraser Strathcoin. But it's a little late for me to try that now. Ah, dear. I don't appear to have tried to read the Flayed Tantra yet, so let's see if I've got 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're 7 and 8. This should be an absolute no-brainer here. Or it will be in 1 minute. Oh, and it also has Magaphine Mysteries. Cool. Incandescent Tantra is an option, and we do not yet have it, so that's actually high on the list. I don't think we can do that without a... Okay. Let's get a Foresight then. Things are looking up. Now I just need to post it. Yeah, we can talk to Yvette right away. Stamp, envelope, send. Did Yvette receive my invitation? The skill is now level 2, its power aspects have also increased. Okay, so let's recap. So metal is going to be used to read the Incandescent Tantra. Fet will be used to potentially level up Inks of Power. Postmistress examines the letter and deems it sufficient. It'll go with the next post, she assures me. For heart, right, so for heart I was going to read it as written. This is interesting. So I guess I would use the whist for this one. That should have a scale. Do the Sun's Lament. So right now, we're just kind of waiting for the pieces to fall into place. I think I'm going to restore the health like I did a couple of times before. Some authorities claim it's difficult to lose a pot of Peribiad ink, but they haven't lived in Hush House. It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Okay. So, the tryst was... Oh, I need 5 seconds. The War of the Roads, 1451 to 1551. Willis Ford describes the War of the Roads, an event in a history other than our own, in detail, from its beginnings as a martial philosophical dispute between the dawn and sunset roads of alchemy to a war which ravaged half of Europe. It is now widely believed that the sons and daughters of the Red Rose were forged into immortals. Understandably, they are, after all, now all long dead. The forge itself... Okay, let's try that again. It is not now widely believed that the sons and daughters of the Red Rose were forged into immortals. Understandably, they are, after all, now all long dead. The forge itself devoured the greatest among them. The royalty of England, according to Willis Ford, became the sovereigns of the Leashed Flame, destroying or transforming their enemies, conquering Europe, establishing grand cathedrals to St. Spark. The alliance with the Forge begins to take its toll. At last, the Bronze King undergoes his great misfortune and his great debasement, and is afterwards known as the Copper King. His attempt to cheat the Forge ends badly. The Leashed Flame is released, and the King's heirs are merely mortal sovereigns. Okay. So we got a few pieces that we needed for today. So we'll take the Tryst, we'll take the Storm, I will take Drums and Dances, which is my highest heart power. We will add the Kitchen Bowls, Cake Time, and we will now read the Flayed Tantra. I can master this mystery, enough heart to match mystery heart. On to the Incandescent Tantra. Ambrose did most of his work downstairs in the foundry and the kitchen, or upstairs in the laboratory, that later became the Flood Gallery, but it was at this desk that he composed The Temptations of Architecture and wrote long cross letters to the Times about the flaws of the British Constitution. Okay, bells and braziers, and we just need the spanners. Or we could use... Let's make this square. Mason's Pride. I can master this mystery, enough forge to match mystery forge. Okay, so the Fett we're keeping aside. It is written is the next target, and that we are going to read once we have our heart back. Welcome back. Did Yvette receive my invitation? All right. Hello there. Got a moment? My visitor can teach me the rudiments of this forgotten language. So I'm not expecting miracles with that one. Again, Henneveck here is intended for Ithistry, which is just going to get me whist. The Sun's Lament, the first volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. The Thornbeak crows took my eyes from me in justice for my crimes, but though I lost my sight, I found my light. Abbot Thomas speaks of the breaking of his oaths to his sword brother Trygeave and to the Lord of Scars that he served before he came to the abbey. He writes of the power of oath bonds and considers the means and morality of their sundering. But yeah, so Henneveck, the options here were Ithistry or Bossk. We went for Ithistry because Kilisimi was going to go into Bossk. Well, I can, but the I have the Faust, which is currently asleep. So the plan is to read it, just not today because I was using my Faust to level up Lockworks and Clockworks. The other thing that I need to sort of acknowledge is that with the arrival of 2 new elements of the soul, there are potentially options as far as the house is concerned. So for instance, I don't think it'll be that hard for us to move up the Ill-Omened Tower. We can get Denzel up to 4, 6 with a memory, 7 with spanners, and then 9 with the T. Better now. Winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Okay, scale time. It is written, Musgrave, 4th of the DeWolf line, writes tentatively about the Covenant of Brankrug and the legacy of the sacred inks he calls Incausta Potentialia. So pentiments and precursors on this one because of the 3 scale. Now I could have just used the earth sign, but that's fine. I get to keep this one, and then finally, whoa! Oh right, it was Peribiot that I was going to use. That's why it was such a priority. I can master this mystery, enough scale to match mystery scale. So I'm definitely in a deficit ink-wise, but it's not that hard to get them all back. So I'm learning Hennevex, so that's going to move out of the list. It's not clear if that is a book that I'm actually able to handle, though. The funny thing is, instead of trying to read the Flayed Tantra, what I should have done is try to read the Gemini Volume 1, seeing as I get the extra 2. Well, that's fine. It's not the only storm that we're going to run into. Okay, the Flayed Tantra. This tantra is recorded as being spoken by an enigmatic individual identified as Peel, with many of the qualities of a mythological Naga. The Flayed Tantra played a notable part in Alexander Sparrow's paranoid pamphleteering. Peel was numbered among the great hooded princes, but it breaks with its brethren and followed the Thunderskin in the Endless Dance. Once Peel had peeled itself, it had the ink it needed to write the Tantra. It had to face the wrath of its fellows. Here, the invocation it used to fend them off. Alright. It's going to take a bit to digest this, but... Alright, and... not... you know what? We are going to put this back in the cubby. The Incandescent Tantra. Michael Blockley, the eccentric iron magnate, was fond of quoting from this tantra. Blockley died in a factory fire. Dialogues with an entity called the Crucible Prince. The prince warns about the appetites of his mistress, the Burning Queen, and the peril of the naked desire she shares with the sun, but professes his loyalty nevertheless. A rite which changes is necessarily a rite which destroys, but a great change requires a destruction of savage extent. Get in there. Alright, transformations and liberations. This is a particularly good one for us, and we get our foresight back. Okay, I'm going to see if I can actually sneak a few of these things into upgrades if I can. So let me just make a note here, foresight. So the first and obvious step is to add transformations and liberations to my skill list. So the things that I'm going to need. Number 1, I want to bring Megaphene Mysteries up, so I'm going to need either a moon or a heart. And that's not too hard because we've already got 2 Triss to work with. So now the second one, a little bit more of a mystery, especially because it's not something that I can use on Horns and Ivories, although there doesn't seem to be any shortage of sort of Moon and Heart to level up. Transformations and Liberations I'll be able to bring up again with a Tryst. Actually, you know what? Maybe it would be better for me to use this. Well, okay, both of them I can sleep on overnight. Yeah, I'm bringing a bunch of Trysts back. Yes, and the Wisp doesn't help either of these things, so we're gonna spend some money to bring all this back. It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I'm sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. I may actually have some surplus elements of the soul by the end of today. We'll see. If I want Kilisimi, I think we have... we can bring in Zachary Wakefield. Sabazine, we can bring in Arthur Moore, keeping in mind that we would need to add him to the book first. Forge and Moth are less different than we think. Every change is in some way a release. This is a tough one, actually. Okay, I'm going to change the order a little bit. How much longer do I have on the scale text? 20 seconds. I'm going to risk it. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get everything that I want done. But I can at least try to push some of this stuff. I can try and push some of this stuff a little bit faster. Hello, Ever-Waiting Sleeper, and said, you don't have to wait for language tutors to... That is correct. So as long as you are able to write them a letter, I would argue it is actually preferable to satisfy the visitor's wish once, because you do need to actually... You need to give them a reason to come back, basically. So what happens is, if you satisfy a visitor's needs... And you don't necessarily... So given the fact that the way that the Tree of Wisdoms works now, it may be that you want certain things to happen or certain things not to happen. You may decide that you don't want to actually help someone with a particular event. But assuming... Assuming that you can satisfy their curiosity either through the event or through just giving them a consultation, if they are happy, they'll give you a calling card. Now what happens is that you can use that calling card with your writing case. So in this case here, I'm able to bring Serena Blackwood, Stanislav John Schaller, Peter Ekdistis, Detective Illuminate Douglas Moore, Eason Fekri, Zachary Wakefield, Dr. Aaron Peel, Dr. Yvette Southey, MCO Lee, Connie Lee, or Fraser Strathcoyne. These are the people who I can currently bring in. If I would like to add Arthur Moore to the address book, then I can combine his calling card with the writing case. But I get an occult scrap every time I do that. So occult scraps are not that hard for me to make because I have the newspaper. But where I can, I like to try and use the occult scraps where I can. So yes, and actually it's even easier. So I took, at the beginning of the stream, Ever-Waiting Sleeper, there's a change that's been added. So Right now, you don't need to use an element of the soul, but you do need to bring a certain amount of certain aspects to be able to bring someone in. Some of them are easier than others, but basically, you need to be able to bring things together. And some people are actually quite challenging to... Oh, sorry, not Lee, Connie Lee. I thought I had a 7. There we go. Dr. Aaron Peel. So in this case, I would actually need 7 moon to bring Peel in. And let's face it, my highest skill is 3, and it's not a moon skill. So that is actually some effort that I'm putting in to be able to write the invitation. You can, yes. It used to be that you just use an ink and then you combine whatever you can to get the relevant requirements, and then you'd send the letter off and hope that they arrive. And that still works, but you now also have the option of typing the letter. So you can use the Chronsicord to type a letter, or you can use the typewriter, and the typewriter is reusable. It's actually quite specific. No, it doesn't have 3 aspects, but it's level 3 for me. So it's heart and winter. What I'm saying though is that if I wanted to bring in Dr. Aaron Peel, I would need 7 moon. My highest level would be quenchings and quellings. So as a level 3 skill, even if it had moon, I still have the work ahead of me to make up the moon with the remaining elements. I'm not saying it can't be done. It's just I'm limited because if I'm at a desk writing the invitation, so the highest that a third would be. So if it's a level 3 skill, the highest it could be would be 4. So you could bring, if you have Catwink, it becomes considerably easier. If not, the only thing an element of the soul is going to get you is 1 moon, unless of course you've leveled up your Trist. So then you're bringing in a memory, and that means essentially you're either waiting for a foggy day, or you can only bring 2 in for that. So all that I was saying, though, in terms of quenchings and quellings is just that that's my highest skill. It's level 3. I wasn't meaning to imply that I would use that to bring in Dr. Peel. But yeah, so in any case, not only is it easier to bring in guests, which I personally will find quite useful, just because for those of you that have been watching the YouTube playthrough, you know that I have been waiting a long time to get Hyksos. But on top of that, they're also making it a bit less difficult in terms of just the crafting to bring people in. So once you've gotten sufficiently far in the game and have gained access to the typewriter, you now have a way of somewhat reliably sending out letters mechanically. Although, again, it's still up to you to bring enough of the relevant aspects. It is written, Musgrave, 4th of the Dewolf line, writes tentatively about the Covenant of Bradkrug and the legacy of the sacred inks he calls Incausta Potentialia. As the light passeth through a prism into many colors, so the great inks separateth into the lesser inks, and the lesser inks into inks minor. Musgrave coyly refuses to talk about the great inks, or else refuses to admit he doesn't know much about them. He insists that Ugol and Stargol, which can be mixed with sufficient nectar or sky aspect, are sufficient for most befitting purposes. So, Confounding Parable and 2 Inks of Power. So either one of these are an option for me in terms of leveling things up. Let's add them to the Confounding Parable section. So a lot of what today is going to rest on, we've got 1.9 seconds to get the Trist back. For this, it's really just a question of Fet or health. I think I'll go for the Fet. But I do need to find something to do with the Whist, because there's really nothing else for me to do today. And unfortunately, I don't think I can do anything with these two. If I could, it would be nice to make something, but... Another Eigengrau? It's just what I need. Well, look, there's no rush on that yet, so... I believe the typewriter would be near Collar's office. I seem to recall that he was fond of technology, and obviously as the unrecognized hero of Book of Hours, I feel like he's a man who would appreciate technological progress. That's by memory, by the way. It's been a while, so I wouldn't bet money on it. But I think it takes lantern, but I can take a look. Just trying to think in the order in which I want to do this stuff. Let's lock in the Magaphine Mysteries. There's always more to learn. Let me, just before I do that... Yes, okay. I just wanted to double check that I could keep sleep on the Confounding Parable. My bad, it does not work with the telescope. But it does if you put it in the Element of the Soul. So I guess it does technically fit in the one, just not in the conventional way. I've learnt enough to puzzle out books in this language, though it might be slow going. Kernwek Henevek, the oldest form of the language, now called Cornish, or something even older. Alright, so as we said before, Henevek is for Ithistry, which gives me a Whist. So we could put it in the roots. A farmer's proverb in Brankrug: what starts in the roots ends in the sky. A superstition goes with it that before a child's first birthday, you should leave her for a summer night sleeping in the roots of an apple tree to make sure that she grows tall and straight-backed. Not many pay heed to the superstition now, but everyone remembers the proverb. It would probably count as Bosk. The stars, a smith's proverb in Brankrug: what starts in the sky ends in the earth. A story goes with it that the village's smith's anvil in the time of the DeWolves was hatched from a meteor stone, and so every plow in the village knows something of the stars. Not many remember the story, but everyone remembers the proverb. It would probably count as Ithistry. Yet another Whist. Right, starting to get a nice little collection going here. I am going to make the Eigengrau. Distill a kind of possibility. I was trying to think if there was something exciting I could do with the heart, but that's not really an option for me. Another Eigengrau? We'll see what the day brings first. I think this may have actually been wasted, but we'll see. Maybe not. Okay, the skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. So, if I think this through, so we'll take 30 seconds to level up Inks of Power. We then take the Tryst to... and the Confounding Parable to level up Inks of Power, which means that with the remaining Whist, I can use that to get another... I guess it depends on what I use the Magaphine Mysteries for. I was going to take a contradiction, but that doesn't have... Yeah. I'm going to need to wait a little longer on that. Okay. That was good. Okay. So I didn't want to... Why did I take the contradict? Good God. Okay. That was just a waste. What I was meaning to do was take the Confounding Parable. Better now. Yeah, so what I wanted to do was get another Confounding Parable so that I would have options with the Magaphine Mysteries, because a Confounding Parable gives me both moon and sky. I have to use the Confounding Parable. Like, this is the whole reason I got it, so... Actually, I guess I have a kind of a way out. We just use the Occult Scrap. Not quite how I wanted to use it, but also not a disaster either, so... Sleep on the Confounding Parable. I'll use the Tryst with the inks, the Occult Scrap for Inks of Power, and then we can use Arthur Moore's card to recover it. Another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. The Inks of Power, the inks in which the histories are written. I am an idiot. I needed a... I needed a FET. The surface of the substance is difficult to resolve, almost as if it weren't there at all. So I'm going to use Eigengrau rather than water for the next little while. And I'm probably going to have to pack it in fairly soon, because normally I don't make mistakes like that. Well, I like to think I don't make mistakes like that. That one was a fairly obvious one for me to stumble on. And it is definitely a representation of me being tired, or of how tired I am. De Bellis Mirorum, an 18th century epic poem by the pseudonymous Solipstos. The poem elliptically describes a war between beasts, weather phenomenon, and arcane concepts. It's quite specific about their tactics. The two, one joined, and the horn distinguished, consequently blood. Oh my god, we got a fleeting reminiscence from this book. That's great. Okay. Actually, probably should call it here, but I'm kind of curious about the weather. I want to get back on track. So, let's, So, letters to my successor, I believe I need the... yeah, I need the revelation. Excuse me for that. Oh dear. Okay. I'm gonna have some complicated choices, I think. So again, for the sake of the argument, what's the strongest winter book that I could get away with on this without touching an ink? Only 9, huh? I'll confess I was expecting a little bit more. But if I read Nin's Cages, it would basically be the same. Oh no, this is a special case actually. Yeah, so this is one of the rare cases I would be able to read Nin's Cages. Now, I do need to be kind of clear in terms of what's happening if I do this. I am leveling up my quenchings and quelling, or I'm getting more quenchings and quellings. I'm getting 2 more, so that's potentially up to level 5. I'm actually kind of okay with that, given that it's sort of my main skill. But I don't want to make an exception like that too often. Especially because this is technically one of the prole skills. I don't know. I like the idea of continuing on with my original skills. So, yes, we will commit this to reading. Okay, so we're getting a revelation for Letters to My Successor. I think I will skip over the scale stuff for now. So I'm going to get... Yeah, the vet's got that. Okay. More ink. And then, if I was so inclined, I could actually hire Denzil today. Or, I can't now because I've used up my heart. I guess I could use the metal and then recover it, but I should probably at some point bring in Denzil to unlock this room. And this room. To Denzil. Okay, but yeah. I think I've got enough to have a good session on Friday. So I know we didn't do anything as far as like the Salon was concerned or anything like that, but I have a few threads that I'm going to be pulling on for the next little while. So number one, we're doing a bit better as far as elements of the soul are concerned because we've just got some languages. So there will be a few more. In terms of my overall expectations here, I should be able to get Kilisimi, so that would go into Bosk. Ramsund, it won't be that hard to bring Fraser in, so we should expect a core. In fact, I should probably bring in Fraser sooner rather than later, so that I can get that core. Now, Sabazine is actually more effective for giving me access to books rather than elements of the soul. But we can get that from Arthur Moore, and that would give us a tryst. And then the final one would be Vac, which I believe we can get. I think that is from Peel. Now, of course, Peel is more difficult to... he is more difficult to bring into the the house. But yeah, we should at least see Bossk taken care of. Bossk before too long. And then Bossk Preservation and Birdsong. So Bossk Preservation, Birdsong. These are going to be the two holdouts. And again, there's no rule saying that I can't go up to these level 2s or anything like that. The only ones that are really causing some difficulty in that regard would be Lantern and I think it's Lantern and Preservation. So if I want to start committing some stuff to like level 2 in terms of Horomakistry and things like that, it's really whenever I want. It would be kind of nice if I could take some time to sort of reflect on exactly what skills I do want and which ones I want to take the distance. But I think I have enough basics in place that I could get roughly what I'm looking to accomplish. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there just because I am sort of feeling the day catch up with me. So today is August the 7th. Thank you everybody for hanging out. Let's take a look and see if we can find somebody to host. Again, I do apologize for the more muted stream today. I'm feeling in terms of progress, actually, even though it was a muted stream, it did actually, like, I made a bit more progress on some of the skill stuff than I was thinking I might, so I know it's, I don't know, it's a 50-50 thing, I guess. Now, there's not too many people online tonight, so what I'm going to do is hand you off to Revived Snow, who is playing The First Descendant. For folks wondering where I was on Monday, it was a holiday in Canada, or at least the province that I lived in. I think it's a Canada-wide holiday, even if it's not officially. So that's the only reason why I wasn't streaming. I will be back Friday. I think the next holiday isn't until next month. Pretty sure it's September. So I will... Actually, the only other day that'll be off is the third Wednesday this month. But yeah, other than that, we will be back to back to the House of Light expansion for Book of Hours. I might, because we've been mainlining this for a while, I might sort of switch it up every once in a while, but right now I'm really just looking to do a bit more in terms of just in terms of playing the DLC and getting a little bit more in terms of the mechanics and how it feels to play this, and hopefully show all of you what you have to look forward to not that far in the future, actually. So in any case, I need to get some sleep, so thank you very much for watching. I will see some of you in a couple of days, and if not, have a lovely evening, and we'll see you around. Take care.